Welcome to Season 6 of the RAG podcast. Now, for those of you who don't know, the RAG stands for Recruitment Agency Growth, and this show has been around since early 2019. And every week, we are obsessed with finding out how the world's most successful and innovative recruitment agencies and their founders have got to where they are today. In Season 6, alongside the founder's story and the inside information of that business, I also want to focus on the reality of today's economy. There is so much noise about this inevitable recession that we find ourselves in right now. And where it's going to go, is it really having an impact on the recruitment sector? Are they seeing any change in job flow? Are they seeing any change in candidate control or activity? What is going on? I want to find out. So every single week, I want to forget the propaganda, forget the noise. I'm going to speak to a real life recruitment owner and find out what is going on in their business. I will bring it to you every single Wednesday from 12 o'clock across multiple platforms. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome back to another episode of the RAG podcast. On this week's show, I am joined by James Wardle, who is the founder of Alderson James, a specialist talent acquisition and HR recruiter, headquartered in the UK with 7 people. Now, what was so unbelievable about this episode is how honest and vulnerable James was. We spoke about the 10 years of running this business and how he started life with pretty much no plan. He was a rec who wanted to effectively work for himself before getting married and having children. And how over the period of 10 years, everything changed during the pandemic because James had to be honest with his wife and his family and his friends that he was a gambling addict. He was at a point where he was spending and winning and losing on ridiculous bets. He was searching for things in lockdown, in the first lockdown, you know, like games in Singapore and Thailand and anywhere in the world he could find sport to bet on, he was betting. And he was also invested in crypto and all sorts. And it all culminated in September 2020 when he lost $50,000 in a day. One day, he lost $50,000 and he had to open up and tell his wife what he'd been doing. His business nearly went under. He only had 2 members of staff, well, him and another member of staff at that point, and he was at rock bottom. Since then, though, he went cold turkey. He stopped betting. He turned it all off, and his business has grown. He then hit 2 million in revenue with 3 people. He's now built the team to 7. He's working with clients all over the world, some of the most unbelievable brands. He's switched on. He's focused. He's got a growth plan. He wants to get to 20 staff in the next couple of years. Now, it's not the biggest guest or biggest business I've interviewed on this show, but it is one of the most honest, vulnerable, incredible episodes I think I've ever recorded. So I really hope you find value as much as I did having this conversation. Without further ado, James, welcome to the RAG podcast.
Good to be here, mate. Seen lots of the episodes you've done before. So yeah, really pleased to be able to come on and talk to you about us.
Finally got you on. You said you've been listening to a lot of shows. Do you know what? I looked at it today. There's been almost 300 episodes now. 300.
Amazing, man. I mean, like, kudos to you, because when you first started doing this, I think you were saying on the Academy the other day that, you know, a lot of people, I think you got a little bit of kind of pushback from people, or a bit of hate from people about what's he doing, what's this all about and stuff. And, you know, I may have been one of those people, right? At one point being like, this is, you know, a bit different. It's a bit, you know, bit of an innovative thing to do within the recruiting industry, but you've stuck with it and you've gone with it. And it's, you know, it's great and everyone knows what it is. So yeah, fair play.
That's the plan. Make sure everyone knows. Well, James, this is about you today. I want to know, obviously I know a bit about you guys. For people that don't know, could you start by giving us the bird's eye view of you in the business today? So you know, the geographies, the people, what you recruit, that kind of stuff. And then we're going to go back and tell the story. All right.
Yeah, sounds good. So I run a business called Alderson James. We are currently 7 people, so boutique, if you like. And we recruit for talent acquisition and HR / people operations roles on a global basis, really. So I'd say that the bulk of the work that we do is in the UK. But we have done quite a bit of work within the EU, particularly in major startup centres like Berlin, Amsterdam, and Barcelona. We've looked into APAC as well and done a little bit in the US, but they're not really kind of major areas for us. We are a fully remote business, always have been. You know, it wasn't a kind of a COVID situation that kind of preempted that. It was more about the sort of people that I wanted to bring into the company in the way that I wanted to work and the way that I felt that I worked effectively. And that's kind of like stemmed through to, to how we operate today. And we're going places really. We've done some great stuff in the past few years, pivoting from doing like an agency rec to rec service, which is how we started, to now doing HR, people and talent, and shifting that focus away from the agency world to working with some really, really interesting brands and really interesting products worldwide. So yeah, that's us.
Love it. Guys, anyone listening, if you can hear a bit of drilling, and me and James been chatting and laughing off screen, the new podcast studio and my new office is being built right now next to my house, and they're building it. So I'm going to be on mute when I'm not talking a little bit, just to keep the sound accurate and good quality. But look, I record this remotely. There's always going to be there's a chance an Amazon guy's arriving or a dog's going to bark. It's just the modern way. But anyway, so James, thanks for that. It's I know you've been running the business for about 10 years.
Yeah.
So let's go back to before that. So how did you get into recruitment? Because you started in rec to rec, right?
I did, yeah. Well, kind of. It was never the plan to get into recruiting, which is probably a phrase you've heard many, many times over. I wanted to be a football writer. I've always been a passionate football fan. I did well in school and relatively well at uni, progressively worse at uni, as started drinking a bit more and being a bit more social. But that was not really a route that was available to me because I hadn't really put any work into it. So, I remember I actually went for an interview for an internship for sports journalism, and they asked me whether I could bring along my portfolio, and I said, I don't know what you mean. So yeah, couldn't do that. Got to the point like kind of moving into London with my partner from uni and needed to find a job. I saw an advert for a recruiter role, uncapped OTE, 100 grand in first year, classic
Dollar.
recruiter. we've all seen them. Yeah. And I bit on it. I got the job. That was actually my first job in recruitment, which was a very, very small startup recruitment business that focused on the betting and gaming kind of online market. Okay. And I worked there for a short period. Didn't really work out. I think I wasn't quite ready for the pace of it, coming straight out of uni. So while I did pretty well, some of the kind of, I suppose, the culture of recruitment at that point, which was, quite hardline in terms of punctuality in particular, I kind of struggled with it and found myself in a situation where I need to find something else. And actually, just looking through, I think at the time it was Gumtree, and I saw an advert on Gumtree for a rec to rec job. Applied for it. Went and had the interview, which was a very, very small company called Atlantic Exec Search. Started there in, I think, kind of October, November 2007, initially looking at kind of the exec search market, doing researcher placements. So with big search firms like Odgers and Norman Broadbent, but also kind of smaller boutiques as well. That didn't really kind of sit with me and my personality. So the boss, a chap called Simon Healy, suggested that I look at IT rec to rec. And start to work with SAP-focused recruiting agencies like Next Ventures, Red Commerce, as well as kind of like broader focused software engineering recruitment.
The key to go for like bigger companies where you'd have consistent hiring.
Not really. I mean, like the directive really from Simon was that you won't get much joy out of those bigger companies because the sexier companies tend to be the companies that are stemming out of those businesses where a good biller has gone and set something up. Better commission structures, more flexibility, cash rich, kind of owner managed businesses, right? So I did that for a few years and was pretty successful with it. And then obviously kind of got into
just
yeah. Well,
rec to rec's a funny one, I think. Like, it gets such a bad name.
Yeah,
it gets so much shit, which is ridiculous, really, because it is recruitment. Yeah. Anyway, what's the hardest thing about being a rec to rec, especially in the early days? Like when it comes to like managing candidates and stuff, like what's the biggest challenge?
I think the biggest challenge that I found was like as a junior recruiter was it's very much like learning the trade as somebody who is very much kind of new to the industry. Like over the course of my career, and I suppose kind of hindsight's a wonderful thing here, it's like how assessing your performance retrospectively, right? And how you used to operate. And the things that I got right kind of straight away, but there's loads of mistakes that I made, recruiting recruiters earlier on in my career, just about, I suppose, kind of what kind of role to occupy with people. And especially when you're very junior, right, and you're trying to place people who are significantly more experienced in this than you are. That's the biggest thing, right? So I suppose for me, the biggest challenge was developing a level of credibility, right? And understanding what recruiters do in different marketplaces, you know, the demands of, you know, or necessities that somebody has to have as kind of personal kind of character traits within like contract recruitment versus permanent recruitment, understanding people's goals and kind of rationalizing them against your own kind of expectations of what you want to achieve yourself, because you're dealing with people who do exactly the same thing as you do, right? So you're putting yourself out there for a significant amount of judgment kind of straight away, because the barometer that your candidates are judging you by is themselves.
Yeah, so they think they know more than you.
Well, sometimes, but you know, well, certainly in some cases they actually do, right? Because you know, you're 6 months experience rec to rec, and you're dealing with, you know, with a manager role and trying to recruit people with, you know, 7, 8, 9, 10 years experience, and it's like, well, to all intents and purposes, you could be my boss. And actually, one of the like really interesting kind of I suppose kind of key moments that I had like was when I was dealing with like a sales director role for you know, another IT recruitment business. And I met a guy called Paul, who, you know, who's a very experienced recruiter of computer people, which became part of the Adecco group. And I remember that he said to me in like the candidate meeting over coffee something about spin selling. And it was the first time that I was just like, I don't know what that is. And I just said, look, like, tell me, what is that? I was like, and I started to kind of get a bit more confident, like calling myself out of not knowing stuff, and actually leaning on the more senior people that I was working with to get advice about, you know, how they've worked and what's been effective to them, and understanding more about, I suppose, kind of like the technical aspects of recruiting, rather than just, you know, I've got a job, mate, do you want to go and have a chat kind of thing, which a lot of rec to recs, to be fair, and this is why I think a lot of rec to recs do get a bad name, is kind of like, oh yeah, you know, just have a chat with him and let's see what happens kind of thing. So actually start to learn a bit more about how to be detailed, and actually you negate your like relative juniority, if that's the word, by actually being more knowledgeable about a situation, therefore able to be a capable and credible advisor at specific opportunities for people that are vastly more senior than yourself.
Yeah.
That was definitely the biggest challenge, right? It's like getting credible with more senior and more experienced people.
Yeah, I bet. And you said that you were pretty successful in that role. So what type of billings were you doing in it, would you say?
I mean, it took a while, right? Because I was doing that search to search thing first, right? And the fee levels in search to search were relatively good, right? Because you place a researcher, you know, starting salary straight out of uni, like 45k sometimes, right? And usually you're on 25%, so that was all right. But to be fair, I didn't really take to that market. I think in that first year, I think I probably did. This is back in 2007, dealing with average fees of probably like 4 to 6k. I think I did about 88, 90k, something like that. Simon will probably like post on the comments, but I know you did about 50, mate, actually. But yeah, that first year was relatively good. The first deal I did was like a 2k deal. I remember getting absolutely rinsed by Simon and Julie, who worked with me in the office, about that's the lowest fee that we've ever done. But, you know, well done, let's go to the pub type situation. But yeah, we move on. That role finished after the global financial crisis. Really, I kind of got a bit itchy feet. You know, it's not really going anywhere. And then I was approached by somebody to set up a rec to rec with them after being recommended by one of our clients, one of the clients that I work with. It was actually Darren Rosenfeld, Next Ventures, had suggested my name to somebody that he used to work with as well, who wanted to get into the rec to rec market. So I went in to do that for I think like back in the 2008, start 2009. And kind of like reiterated the, you know, similar level of performance success. I mean, you know, not exactly blowing the doors off it when you build like 80k in a year, right?
So you started your own business.
It wasn't my own business. It was someone starting their own business, and they had rec before, so they wanted someone to kind of help navigate that. And that was probably the first point where I thought I could probably do this on my own.
How old are you then?
I think I must have been about 25.
Right.
24,
yeah, so 25. You're basically in a startup anyway. Did you ever have any like entrepreneurial, you know, people in your life that were you always knew you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
Not really. I mean, my parents were both teachers. Grandparents were, you know, I think my granddad on my mum's side was, you know, worked down a mine or something like that up in Sheffield, kind of, you know, around your neck of the woods. So no one had really done anything. I looking back into kind of family history and stuff. I think somebody, you know, one of our family used to own a wine, like a wine shop on Haymarket in London, which was interesting. Never really got into that, but you know, there you go. But yeah, no one had done anything like particularly commercial previously. But I'd always been, maybe black sheep or kind of mold breaker within the kind of family situation. No one had ever really been into sport. I was well into sports school. And I kind of preferred to do more active stuff than the academic type stuff. Well, I was very good at academic stuff as well, because got my mum to do my homework basically. But but yeah, I just kind of, the penny just dropped for me that as a predominantly permanent recruiter, all that I needed was a bit of a cushion and my network.
You're sticking around for, you're not driving contract revenue for yourself for later on, are you? Like, you're not.
Well, exactly, yeah. I mean, I think if you've got the confidence and you've got the nous and you appreciate how to build and solidify networks, then and this is a bit of advice for anybody perhaps who's thinking about setting up on their own, right? You've got to 100%, you've got to back yourself, right? But you can't just back yourself in terms of swagger. You've got to back yourself in terms of what you have in terms of the raw materials of building a business that sits behind you, and that's your network, and that's your financial capability to support yourself for 6, 7.
But when you did this though, with that guy, you're on a salary, right?
I was on a salary, yeah.
So you kind of had the best training ground, didn't you? Because you basically did a startup twice. You did the IT one for someone else, but you do it again. But you're also being paid, so you're not taking the full risk. But that's when the penny drops. That actually, if I just took that away and I was on my own, I'd be making a little bit more.
But that's why I took the opportunity, right? Because I thought it'd be good exposure, and I'd had these these I suppose kind of thoughts and feelings about being able to do it on my own previously. But it was like an exercise of validation. I'd say probably that first half of my career, right up until when I set up Alderson James 10 years ago, that was all about validating a level of capability to do something on my own, rather than being a career person, like a career employee. So yeah, that was a good experience. That was about a year or so, and then the kind of I suppose the really pivotal moment came for me in terms of expanding and increasing my level of capability and perhaps kind of self-belief as well, which is that I went to a client meeting with a company called CityTech, which at the time was a challenger business within IT recruitment for investment.
Stephen Grant, isn't it?
Yeah, Stephen Grant, who was and continues to be a wonderful contact and an incredibly kind guy. I went in. I met with a chap called James Richmond and Ricky Chawler. James was ex S3, Ricky was ex MSB. Both had been very, very successful previously and were now directors with CityTech. They had been brought in to kind of scale the business. I went in to pick up some roles from them. I came out with a job offer to go in work as their first ever internal recruiter, which is something that I wasn't really looking for. But it just made a lot of sense, right? It was at the point where if you went to be an internal recruiter, it basically meant you weren't very good at recruitment. So I was a bit really, but they got me a good package, and it felt like the right thing to do. And actually, it was brilliant. It was transformative in terms of level of capability and understanding of actually how it works on the inside, rather than just kind of pushing the sell. Really understanding how a business works, really appreciating the day-to-day challenges that the people that I've been placing for the past 3.5 years were facing within their recruiting careers, right? And it was great as well because they'd never had anyone do that role previously. So it was mine to kind of cultivate. And it was just at that kind of point where LinkedIn in particular was becoming the prevalent tool for recruiting, right? And back then it was basically like an online classifieds board, right? You couldn't put pictures on posts, you couldn't put videos up. It was just, I've got a job.
You didn't think of it though. You didn't really think about it, did you? It was a way of broadcasting your jobs and finding new people. That was all it was.
Basically, yeah, it's connecting me. I remember I had a thing at the bottom of your profile page where you could put I'm open to opportunity. Basically, all the features that they now expanded out into different products, right? Yeah. I'm open to opportunities, potentially relocate, blah, blah, interested in joining a pro bono group, all that sort of stuff. So, put all that stuff down. But you'd be send a message. You had 200 characters, write it. See, you're open to new opportunities. Shall we have a chat? Or put on the LinkedIn feed, I've got a great role, 25K, 30% commission. Give me a shot. Give me a call.
In capital letters, people will notice it.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I managed to kind of get develop a way of kind of owning that kind of LinkedIn, that I suppose kind of primitive version of LinkedIn in terms of consistency of posting, stuff that obviously you're an expert in, right? But I managed to kind of get on top of that and make a regular kind of habit of posting, and tub thumping, banging the drum about joining City Tech, right? We've got this many PSLs. We're growing here, and here. We're going to expand to Amsterdam, Singapore. Great opportunities, blah blah blah. And it was a great way of like evangelizing about the business. And it was through that experience that I got like I suppose kind of total validation that I could probably just do it on my own. So I did, and and that's where it all started. So it was a long story.
No, it's fine. So take us back to what year was it, and what did you do to set the business up?
So I registered the business in 2011, and it was 2011 was a tough year for me because I lost my mum, who was incredible, as everyone's mum is, right, an incredible influence on me, right? She raised me singularly from probably 8 years old, and she was always a very determined person. She would always push herself. She'd always go out of her way to help people in a role as a teacher, but also in life in general. And losing her kind of gave me a bit of a, like, I suppose, kind of profound sense of mortality, and like you've got to get shit done, right? So so it was late in 2011, and actually the other like slightly bizarre kind of like catalyst in it, I'd just done a total rupture of my cruciate ligament, and I've been, since Mum had passed away, I've been leaning into like exercise and playing football as an escape route, and I couldn't do it. And I was like, what's going to really satisfy me now? Because I'm going to be not able to do stuff for 9 months probably to come back from this this injury. So I actually sat at work and I registered Company's House on the work computer. But then it wasn't the right time
where does the name Alderson James come from?
That's my mum's maiden name, so everyone can get access to my bank account now. But I wanted to that has been changed. But I wanted to kind of get a piece of my mum into it. As it's a weird thing. So the semantics of a company name are it's quite a complex situation, especially when you see a lot of companies coming up with like really cool names like Hoxo, for example, or something without a vowel in it. And I often look at the company and think, we sound a bit old, or like a legal firm or something like that. But hopefully the personality we try and inject in the business actually kind of makes
matters
up
to you at the end of the day.
Well, that's it. It does matter to me, and I wanted to have that presence because it was as a result of her passing that I did it, and it's as a result of her influence that I think I'm all right at it. So it's got to stay there. So that's where it comes from. So a lot of time.
When you actually did start, and what was were you at home? Were you in an office? Like, what was it like?
So at the start, I was a mixture of at home and in an office. I had engineered a situation for myself where I had a silent partner who would pay me a salary that I would pay back incrementally over the course of the first year of the business. Which again is something I recommend that people wanting to do stuff on their own should explore. A friend of a friend, somebody who's got a bit of money, like, can you hook me up on a monthly basis for 6 months, and I'll pay you back on a draw as billings like incrementally increase. So essentially the situation was
a profit element, like 10% back or whatever.
Exactly that. So it was a salary situation. Basically I was on a high salary, right? But then a very high commission structure. So they would get a cut of the billings, right, as like an investment partner, right? And then we negotiated an exit point after a year where a degree of the profits would be shared. So I got myself a comfort blanket, which is great. I mean, I had a bit of a comfort blanket myself in terms of savings, but it was that greater level of security that I think was facilitated by having a silent partner, and it had nothing to do with recruiting.
In an internal job as well, I imagine you wouldn't have had a non-compete that was very valid either, because
no, it's fine. I mean, actually, I sought the blessing of Stephen Grant and Rob, his business partner, to kind of go and do it. And when I left City Tech, it was a really hard thing to do, because I loved working there. What we'd done was great. The project had been fantastic. It was an exciting place to be. It was a crazy place to be. But it was a hard decision to go, because I felt like I could have stayed there probably another 5-10 years.
Did they become a client of yours?
They did, yeah. So that first kind of phase or first iteration of Alderson James was very much focused on the agency market. And the first clients that we worked with were City Tech, MP Group, Next Ventures. You know, it's like all the old kind of like usual suspects that I'd worked with previously, right? Morgan McKinley, Asprey Marsden, like, you know, McGregor Boyle, all those companies we were able to pick up relationships with as well. But I didn't want to rely, like, I wanted this kind of as much of a break as possible from that kind of previous situation. I think they did as well. They brought someone else in to do their internal recruitment. They got a standard of like direct hiring at that point as well, which meant that they didn't really want to be leaning on agencies so much. But it was, you know, it was a good connection to have.
I wanted to quickly interrupt this episode to update you on what it is I actually do all day, apart from the RAG podcast, of course. Now, most of you know from the episodes that I am the founder of Hoxo, right? What you probably don't know is that we're currently working with over 250 recruitment agencies and over 4,000 of their recruiters around the world in every continent, and helping these businesses brand themselves and the people in the company better. Now, we have built a creative team over the last 6 years that helps manage the creation of new agency brands. Obviously, a lot of the listeners in the RAG are starting their businesses for the first time. But more often than not, we rebrand tired companies. So many businesses we work with are smashing it when it comes to revenue and performance, but their website and their online story was built back when they started for like 500 quid, and it just does not represent who they are today. So we believe getting that right building a brand becomes your anchor. Now, every good brand also needs traffic, right? You need people to see it, to come to the website, see you online, and that's where your people come in. So we work to either manage the personal brands of your team, or we can teach you how to build the brand yourselves. All of it is designed to give you consistency on LinkedIn that helps you stand out from the competition, show your personality, show and add value, and ultimately make more money. Now, I personally speak to potential new customers along with my business partner, Amma. So I would love to spend some time with you, my RAG listeners that I potentially don't even know yet. Any of you that are interested in building a brand that's fit for purpose in 2023 and beyond, come and speak to us. Just click the link in the show notes, fill in the form, and we will be in touch with you within 48 hours to book a 30 minutes video call ASAP. Right, back to the show. What was your life like at that point? Like, obviously you just lost your mum, which is tragic, and I'm really sorry to hear that. Were you with your partner living in a flat? Like, what was life like?
It was kind of a bit of a critical point, to be honest. Like, I got engaged in 2012. Been with my partner Joe for, I think, 10 years at that point, maybe 8, 9, 10 years, something like that. I hope she doesn't watch this. And we were getting married in 2013, right? Just when I started the business, and I had this sense of like impending doom. No, I'm not really messing. I had this sense of like I had to get stuff done, because I knew that we wanted to have kids. I knew that we wanted to buy a house. You know, all the like the grown up stuff. We're going to get to that point of like adulting, right? We were living in London. We were living in southwest London, I think, kind of Brixton, Earlsfield, Tooting kind of area. But our life was changing, right? So, you know, we were getting married, planning to have children relatively early and stuff like that. So I had to get it done, setting up the business, because I knew if we passed that precipice of like having kids and needing to do all that stuff, then I would become so much more reliant on being employed rather than self-employment. So I had to make a move at that point. So working from a flat in London, you know, getting out there, still meeting people, always made a point of meeting people. You know, one of my managers early on in recruitment was like, you have to smell them, which was like my favorite comments. Like, if you don't smell them, you don't know them. I'm like, that's just kind of a weird thing to say, mate. But, you know,
you made a whiff on the way out.
Yeah, good whiff on the way out. As you both walk to the same tube station, having said goodbye already, which is always an awesome thing in London, right? But yeah, no, we had to get it done. We were in a flat in southwest London, and you know, it was pressured, man, but it was good pressure, right? And especially when my first child came along, Lily Rose, in June 2014. that was sooner than I thought it was going to be, right? And you know, then your whole kind of like compass of responsibility changes. Like, you've got a kid, you've got a life that you need to look after. You've got other half on maternity leave, and you've just made the biggest gamble of your career so far, right? So it was a positive thing. It was a positive energy kind of to kind of push me towards trying to be more productive, trying to be more innovative, and actually kind of like, you know, sometimes you need those kind of external forces to kind of provoke your actions about how you're doing stuff, right? And it was right there in my face. So yeah.
What in terms of trying to like, and again, I think this is a really important thing for people when they're starting up. Like, did you have a big vision plan, or were you just like looking at like the next 30 days and be like, can I make money? Like, what was your mindset? Because I was definitely the latter. Like, didn't really look at the big picture. I just went out and thought, we've got to make some fucking money here. And
I think it was like an instinctive thing. Yeah, it's very similar, right, to what you said. Like an instinct is like I can do this. Don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it. What I'm going to do, I'm not really sure, but I'm going to give it a shot. Like that was my whole kind of mentality around it. I didn't think, you know, probably even like 2-3 years ago, I didn't think that we would be. I know we're not a big company, but I didn't think we'd be 7 people, with plans to, you know, to get even bigger, right? It's a really weird thing, because the original reason why I did it was that I wanted. Do you know what? Being super honest, I've got lots of friends who run their own business, like not in recruiting, but in like plumbing or, you know, trades or whatever.
Yeah.
And I kind of looked at them, and I was like, I'd looked at them as like great examples of people who are kind of independent, right? You know, you go to your job, you finish at 4, you know, you make some decent money and stuff. And that was a point where we're all kind of, you know, ostensibly single people, you know, in relationships. So we were single people in London, and it's like, finish at 4, go to the pub. And I was like, that really appeals to me, right? Like, I want to do that. I'm late 20s, so living the life kind of thing. And it started off as a bit of kind of a selfish lifestyle exercise in a lot of respects, right? It's like, I want to make good money. I reckon I could make more money doing this than I was, you know,
How did it go? Did you actually do that? Did you manage to make
good
money and
yeah.
life?
Yeah. I mean, not blowing the bloody doors off it, right? But, you know, it's good money. I think the first year that we were in business and it was just me on my own, starting off in May, the financial year was probably like 90K, right? Yeah. But then that increased exponentially kind of year on year.
Your overheads are so low. It's good
low.
Money. You'd have to build. You have to build 300 in an agency, at least 400 to get that.
Well, that's the thing as well. Like I'd always, in my previous roles, I'd always benefited from, thankfully, from managers who trusted me. More for them, obviously, but they trusted me to kind of get on with it in the way that I needed to get on with it. And that was often, you know, I was not in the office. I was going out and meeting people for a coffee. You know, taking people out for dinner after work, and actually doing a lot of work, because the nature of recruiting recruiters, it's difficult to call a recruiter at their desk, right? Because, you know, then you've got, you know, Gary, the sales manager, being like, who was that? Like, you can't do it. So I think there was an appreciation in my early career that I would probably do most of my work when I got home, right? And I did, you know, get home at, you know, 5:30, 6 o'clock, and then, you know, 2-3 hours worth of calls. And then during the day, people, you know, colleagues would be like, what are you doing? And I'd be like, playing Roberto Baggio free kicks, but, you know, they go, I'll be working later, mate, or going off to meetings. But like, it was good start. Yeah, I did a question myself after the end of the first year a little bit, like, is this the right thing to do? Definitely. I thought I was going to make more.
What were the best bits and what were the worst bits of that first year? Let's start with the good stuff.
Oh, the first deal, getting the first deal in, it was like, right, it's like, gosh, I can do this. Don't need no database. Like, yeah, I'm all good. What about the brand? Like, and yeah, that first kind of quarter where
did you go straight to the pub?
Do you know what? I can't remember. Probably. It's a long time ago, mate. It's been a lot happened since, but yeah, I think so. But I remember just feeling so kind of vindicated. The first deal, it was actually bizarrely, right, for someone who'd done like IT Rectorate for such a long time. It was in a pharma company, and that market was really kicking off at that point. Companies like Skills Alliance, Pro Clinical, And that was where we had a lot of joy, really, in terms of kind of long-term relationships. That was great. But the other thing was actually the level of liberation I got from actually moving into looking at like a broader array of markets. So we've done, I'd always done like tech, right? But then I was looking at life sciences, farmers, looking at digital media creative, a little bit of accounting and finance, but I always found that a little bit boring, to be fair. But yeah, it was opening up, the excitement of like opening up and like, deploying your skills into different channels. That was great, as well as, I'm making money on my own steam here, right? This is good. This is, being grown up. This is being responsible.
What are you doing, like an average of a deal a month or something like that over that year?
I mean, I think that year, I think I did 25 placements, right? So it's probably like about two deals a month, right? 2 and a bit deals a month. And the billings were, like 88, 90K, factoring in that I think probably of those 25, we probably had like 5 dropout rebates type situation. So it could have been more. The biggest challenge in that year, to be fair, was actually going on honeymoon for a month, which, like interrupted it in mid-flow.
That's a really good point. I mean, I've just had I went away to Dubai for a week, and then my business partner went away for a week for his birthday.
Yeah.
We're still, I've mentioned this on a few things recently, we're still very heavily involved in the sales front end. You know that. You're working with
Yeah.
Actually, my job from May is to get out of that. Like, he's kicking me out. We're building a sales team. Like, I'm finally not going to be responsible for, I will always drive revenue and I will always sell, but I'm not going to be spending my 80% of my day doing it like I have been.
Yeah.
But momentum is so important when when things depend on you, right? You go away, you have a good time, but fuck me, it's like, it's not like you come back in the day after and it all starts again. Like, you genuinely, there's so much. But you look back at your best months and you're like, I was there all month and I was there the month before. That's usually the trigger. Is they worked really hard the month before and then it fucking paid off that month. Then you get excited and go on holiday and it all starts again.
But it's the old adage, isn't it? Like, going on holiday when you work in recruitment is the death sentence for anything you got going on, right?
Yeah,
100%. And I've been in this for 16 years, and I completely agree with that statement. Like, the ball gets dropped when you go away, right? Unless you hold the ball while you're away. So, that had its impact on me, right? Like, going away on holidays, I remember between probably 2013, 2016, 2017, like the first holidays we had with the kids, I used to have to say to my other half, I'm going to do the 2 hours of work today, because I didn't want to drop the ball. I remember closing deals by, it sounds like, champagne and Range Rovers type situation, like closing deals while I was like sitting at the side of the pool, in the south of France. And, that's great. And it's a bit of, I did a deal with Fred while I was away on holiday. Like, great, well done. But actually, there's an opportunity cost to that, which was that, I wasn't spending time with the family. I wasn't relaxing. I wasn't switching off, right? But on the honeymoon, had to do that, right? It was a law.
Do you think that you'll always be like that, or do you think you'll get to a point where you can actually?
Yeah, I mean, the access point to exit that is having a team that you can trust, and I'm very, very grateful and very fortunate to have that right now. I think this year I went to Egypt in February, and it was the first time. I think I took one call the whole week. And that was with, like, obviously as a business owner, as a recruiter, there are certain situations you have to deal with, and it was, somebody having a massive wobble on a placement. So I was like, right, I've got to do this, and I disappeared for probably 20 minutes, sort it out. But I could leave everything to the team, but also, at the same time, you can leave everything to your clients and your candidates. And you build trusted relationships, and there's a respect there as well. You say, look, I'm going away on holiday. I'm really sorry that I can't contribute to the process, but I've ring-fenced this time for my family and for myself to recharge the batteries, right? But it's the first time in 10 years that I've fully switched off on a holiday, and that, that's amazing. Maybe that's just me, but I think
Was it a better holiday or was it worse?
It was amazing. It was amazing. Like, and the biggest thing about it was being with the other half and with the kids and feeling like you deserved it, but actually giving them what they deserve from you as a father, as a husband. And I'm not holding myself as a paradigm of great kind of fatherhood or husbandry, but having that disconnection from your work to really connect with your family is so important. And actually,
how do you find that on a daily basis? Because I'll be honest, like, if you look, a bit about my story, right? Going back 2 years ago, I'm living on my own with a dog. right?
Yeah.
You know, going back 3 years ago, what date are we on now? Yeah, so 3 years ago, I'm living with my ex-wife, breaking up.
Mm.
Then I'm on my own. Then I get back with my ex from years ago, and then we're dating from afar. And I'm living, and I've got the best of both worlds in a way. I've got a relationship that's budding, and it's brilliant. But I'm living in Manchester. I'm on my own. I've got a dog.
Yeah.
And I remember back then I was able to contribute to the business whenever the fuck I wanted. Like I could jump on at 7 a.m. and do a call in Australia with no guilt, and I could do it equally at night with New Zealand or with the US, and with no guilt. I remember closing deals at 11 o'clock in the US in my flat in Manchester and not giving a shit, right? And then I moved in with my wife and kids, similar age to your kids, and everything changed. And I don't think I changed with it for very quickly. Like I didn't really get that I couldn't do certain things when I wanted to do it, or I could, but I had to at least prepare people. I had to talk about it. I had to be open. I'd be like, you know, I wouldn't even tell my wife, oh, by the way, I'm on a call now. It'd be like 6:45 a.m. So I've got that wrong. I know I have. And I'm still playing that judge now. And I think that's one of the biggest things I'm looking forward to coming out of sales so much is more, I don't think those times in the morning and the evening will be interrupted as much because I will get shit done in the day. Whereas when you're selling all day and then you've got projects, you have to, or you've got international clients, you have to do it. So what, again, we're talking about a 10-year journey here.
Yeah.
From not having kids to having kids. But how have you found that? And what's been
I think the most challenging part, right, is actually it's communicating, like communicating about the complexities of your work, your appointments, and you know the things like things can change like on the turn of a sixpence, right? You know, in recruiting, and you know that's not being like, oh yeah, recruit's so fast paced and ever changing. It is, right? You know, what one message, one email can change a whole day, right?
Do you know what? As well? Sorry to interrupt. I'll let you finish. But the one email, one text can not just change everything about your day. It can change your mindset.
Totally.
So you can read an email at 6:45 a.m. Getting out of bed previously in a good mood, and then you've just realized, and then you've got to go down for breakfast, and you've got to put a face on. Like, how do you cope with things like
that? I try and avoid my phone till 9.
Right, that's a great tactic.
I try my best, unless like cracking on with the Football Manager game that I left on the side when I fell asleep the night before. But they
what about you got interviews in the morning and stuff? Do you check?
I usually check the night before. I mean, it differs really. It depends on how busy you are at whatever time. It's been a challenging time for our market in the past year or so. So it's not as intense. Like in the best year we ever posted, everything went out the window. Like because we were smaller then, and it was just insanely busy. So yeah, I would pick up and I would carry emotion from processors working with, from emails that come in late at night, like or first thing I can't go to the interview, or I'm going to accept another offer, or that kind of stuff. And it's really hard. You can't be a robot about it. Like you get emotionally invested in processes, right, with the people, with the client, with the journey that the client's going to go on, and all that sort of stuff. Like if you don't wear it, you can't sell it, right? Like you have to be involved both sides of the process, invested in your candidates, invested in your clients. And when you hear when there are bumps in those roads, it's really difficult to manage, right? And especially when you come downstairs and there's Cheerios all over the floor, the packed lunches aren't ready that you should have done last night. Kids won't can't find their shoes, like a standard thing. Where are your shoes? Like you get your shoes on, and it becomes very difficult not to let that. It's like a case of like basically compartmentalizing your emotional responses to work away from your home life, and it's really hard.
Because you can be so much shorter with your kids if you're in a bad mood.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, totally, man. But one thing that's been really good about that for me, and it sounds really basic, is actually being in here now, right, in the office. It used to be our garage, right, and obviously you're getting some fun at the moment.
Yeah,
I worked for years in the house. I never had an office. I was in the house, and it was all going around me. And I was able to cope with it when they were little babies, but now now they're older and they've got opinions, and they're very demanding in terms of me wanting to show them what it takes to be incredibly good at computer games. Then that's that's the way that it works.
I get it. I'm currently like in my this is my nursery soon for the baby, and it's in the house, right? And what they're doing out there now is the office. But I can't stop working at 4 o'clock because you lot are home. Like, I can, but I don't want to, and it's not how my business has been built, and it's not how I'm wired, right? So to me, it's 6 o'clock's probably finish time in my head. It's what I was drilled into at recruitment. That's
but how often do you finish at 6?
Now, I probably do finish earlier, and then I'll go back to it later. Like I find between 4 and 6 is almost impossible because the noise level and the stuff that's going on. And then my wife like, well, tea's ready at 5, and I'm like, well, fucking hell, like eating at 5, or what we're doing at 5. But then I'm like, well, it's my own fucking business. If I want to eat at 5, I'll eat at 5, and then I'll jump back on later. So I've kind of lost the time of finishing now. But then I have to explain why I'm going back on my laptop later. And it's just this kind of like merry-go-round, which I'm learning.
I know, right?
Easy.
That's the hardest part for me. I mean, especially the other half. She's a nurse, right? And so she has a very structured day with appointments, certain times and stuff. And like, yes, there are knee-jerk moments in that situation, of course, right? Emergency moments in that situation, but it's very parametered and it's very sectioned. So where we find that we sometimes clash because of the difference in kind of focus of what we do and the very kind of landscape of what we do is where, I'm like, I've got to jump on this call now, like right now. And like, it can't wait, it's not, it doesn't work that way. It's a very fluid, like career to work in recruiting. Like you've got to be on the ball and you've got to respond to stuff, especially like, in like crazy market that we had like 21, 22. When we were getting business, it was coming out of our ears, right? And you want to convert, you want to get onto it quickly, like, and that's it. Because if you don't, someone else will. That's it. Like, I've had clients who I've missed by 20 minutes, and they say, "Oh, we reached out to someone else." Yeah. So, oh, great, thanks for that. It's like you Asda was closed, you went at Tesco's. Like, I'm not Asda, more Waitrose. But But yeah, it's hard. But the key to it, and I'm still getting this right, is communicating. Like every morning at the moment, I share, like I do a print screen in my diary and share it with my other half. I mean, by 10 o'clock, it's usually changed like dramatically, but keeping updates and stuff. And then it allows you to ring fence time where you say, okay, cool. Well, I can spend some time with the kids. I can build some Lego. I can draw some pictures. I can play football in the garden, whatever. It tends to work quite well.
Yeah. I think because I missed out on the earlier years with them and I only came in at like 6 and 8 or 7 and 8.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know if I feel like, and I might be wrong, I feel like I'd have been more like gradual with it. Whereas I went from 0 to like, it's there every day in my life, in the morning, at night. And it was really difficult for me.
Yeah.
But now I love it. Now I'm embracing it. And obviously I've got my own coming. It's going to be another challenge. There's going to be, the whole sleepless night thing I've never dealt with, which is going to be fucking fun.
You'll have a night feed, mate. Brilliant. The thing is, well, I can completely empathize that situation because it's something that I've had to change relatively recently. And I think when you are, whether you're male, female, or whatever, like when you are an entrepreneurially spirited person, it's very, very hard to take the blinkers off. And get away from what you are trying to achieve, even when you don't even know what that is, right? It's like, I've got to do this, and you kind of like you've got this compulsion to focusing on making things that go well or go right. So it's very, very difficult to make that transition to to kind of understanding like how it affects that side of thing, right?
I actually really enjoy it as well. Like, that was one thing I had to say to my wife last month was like, I'm working a lot at the minute. There's a couple of things I'm doing. I'm trying to replace myself in the team. So I'm trying to build the processes. I'm trying to hit numbers because we've been away. Like, there's stuff we need to do. But I really am enjoying it, by the way. Like, I'm not doing this begrudgingly. I'm not sat in my office pulling my hair out going, fucking hell, I wish I was. I'm actually enjoying it. Like, I don't know about you, but personally, when I'm at my desk and I'm in the flow and I'm chatting to my clients, I'm chatting to my team, and I love it. I don't feel like I'm being forced to work. I feel like I'm choosing to work, and that, I think for some people that's quite hard to get their head around as well. For if they are doing a job where they're not particularly as happy or whatever, it's tough. I think.
I would say that my work's got better since I learned to compartmentalize things. Like, and it became less free form. Like, I've got to take this call at 7:30 at night. You know, I need to be like, for example, when I was trying to do stuff in America, I was picking up stuff East Coast, West Coast. The West Coast stuff, it took me about three months to realize like this is just not good for me. No. Like being on the phone at like 11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock, like 12 midnight, trying to be compelling and like, sell to people, right? Persuade people to make a move or to use us as a supplier. It's just like, what am I doing? This is absolutely mental. Like, you got to make sacrifices in terms of your ambition, but also if you sacrifice that area or compromise that area where you are focused on work, you got to make sure that you're fully focused on work at that point. But you will work better in those times if you segment personal from professional.
So let's go back to the journey then. So you obviously it was just you 10 years ago, and there's a team now, and you were pretty open that you didn't have a plan. So you're billing, and your life in those first few years was marriage,
chaos, man.
Starting the baby life, starting being a father.
Yeah.
So when do you think it got to a point where, or when did it get to a point when you started to think, I need to hire now? Like, this isn't just about me being a self-employed recruiter. This is about a business.
It was probably about 18 months in, right? And I think it was bred from a level of kind of client demand or opportunity, right? You know, rec to rec is, it's a kind of market that makes you think you're a god at business development, you know, because all the recruitment companies, they want to hire a recruiter. If you've got a good recruiter, you can make a placement. Like, simple as that. And it's easy, therefore. As long as you come across as a credible person who's going to represent their business, you know, it's kind of like it's a game for anyone, right? Yeah. So we got a lot of stuff. Actually, I suppose the critical thing on the work side was that we've started to get like relatively large volume projects where companies were wanting to grow by 10, 15 people in a 6-month period, particularly within like the pharmaceutical market. Where we made some really, really good inroads there. So I was like, right, I need to get someone else in to support me. Because home life was challenging with our kids, and work, was getting busier. So actually the first 2 hires that I made, they didn't really work out. Fair play to the chaps that I hired. They worked hard. I don't think I was ready to be a manager at that point. It became, I think it was probably as difficult for them as it was for me in terms of that situation. It also was a bit of a lesson in not hiring people who you are mates with necessarily, because we used to meet up in London and sit down for a coffee, basically be those guys with like a laptop in a coffee shop somewhere for the whole day, and we just don't talk about football or what's good on Netflix, that kind of thing, right? And not really too much work. So that it didn't really work out. And then I brought Kelly on. And it was a kind of case of third time lucky, really. Kelly Wade, she was previously the internal recruiter of Premier Group, who are a pretty successful design recruitment agency. And she was recommended to me by a couple of candidates that I pulled out of Premier Group. And she came in, she made an instant impact. She was very, very good with entry level hires as well as experienced. And it was me and Kelly for a good couple of years. And she and we, in terms of performance, we continue to increase. And I think I'm looking at notes here. We got 30 placements, 38 placements, 50 placements, a little bit to 42, back to 53, 82, onwards and onwards. And she's been great. She's been incredibly loyal. She pushes back on me. She calls me out on stuff, which is great. She's been on 2 maternity leaves now, and she's now come back into the business starter this year. And is doing like a hybrid, like internal operations and kind of external facing role.
Is she live near you? Like you meeting up regularly, that kind of stuff?
Well, we're out in Norfolk now, so actually it's not too far to where she is in Essex. I think it's about an hour 20, something like that, driving. So yeah, we do meet up when we can. But yeah, we're all remote. So we've got Kelly's in Essex, Samantha's in Southeast London, Emma's in Southeast London, Paddy's in cool and interesting parts of East London. He's actually working out in Barcelona at the moment. He's done some time working out in South Africa over Christmas as well. So Gabriella's in North London. We're all kind of spread out. We do try and meet up as much as possible. But going back to what I was saying, Kelly came, and that was I think credit to her for sticking with me, and she's been in the company for probably 8 years now. I think 7 or 8 years, and she's seen me at my best, she's seen me at my worst,
But
And
the business is obviously catered for what she wanted, otherwise she wouldn't be there. Like,
exactly, yeah. I mean,
right?
she's been off on 2 maternity leaves, which we've tried our best to support her in those situations. And I think that's been really appreciate from her side. But it provided something for her as a first time and then second time mum and a young mother at that, to have the flexibility to do that. And that's what I genuinely believe businesses should be doing, is allowing people to work in the way that they are most effective, right? And you can push people and you can try and accelerate people's development, but actually the best way to do that is to give them what they need. And she's, I stand by that. I think she's had that from us here, and it's enabled her to be successful and build a career, really.
At what point did you start moving out of just solely rec to rec, and why?
I mean, it's something that we wanted to do for a little while. I think it was a mixture of kind of getting a bit tired of agency rec to rec. I think it's a bit of a young person's game, to be honest. Although, feel free to kind of contest that. But also, I had this kind of feeling of momentum in my network of people getting older, more in-house roles coming or becoming more prevalent or more available. In the last 10 years, we've seen a big shift in terms of the quality of in-house recruitment teams. And I say that with great respect to people who did in-house recruiting prior to that. But it strikes me that in-house recruiting is a relatively new phenomenon, right? Talent acquisition teams, especially at the scale that we've seen them. But it made sense to us from a commercial perspective because that's where our network was in terms of its level of maturity. And we got we'd done a couple of bits and bobs in-house previously, but we got a breakthrough with God, who was it? So it was kind of commensurate at the same time. We got a breakthrough with an RPO, like an embedded RPO, which was Seed. We're a wonderful business. And sit in that kind of group of, Seed, Talentful, Elements, Scout, embedded talent agencies, kind of RPO 2.0 is what I used to refer to them as. So we've got a subscribe model with them, and then kind of via osmosis of moving towards that kind of pseudo in-house type situation. Then it started to breed more in-house opportunities, and we got roles with this kind of 2018, 2017 time, and we got roles with a couple of betting and gaming companies. We got roles with Babylon Health. We got roles with Discovery Communications. We got roles. I mean, it just started to come, and it came via referral. It came via people that we placed or I'd placed previously, 5-6 years before, now being like talent acquisition leaders. And it kind of just happened, but we kind of wanted it to happen. So it was like by accident and design at the same time.
And did that generate? Was that a different business way of working then, like bigger fees? Different processes, like.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was more commercially viable, right? When you're placing an agency recruiter, your volume comes at that kind of 25 to 40k level, and you're looking at probably 18 to 22% fees, right? 20% average fee. So it's lower. And if you metric in-house salaries over the past 5 years, you'll see that the average entry level role for somebody moved from agency to in-house, you're looking at 35, 40k, right? And then upwards to a head of talent type role in early stage company, like a seed to a Series C, looking at a 90 to 120, generally speaking, right? And that market fluctuated in the kind of overheated market 21, 22 post COVID. But yeah, it just made a lot more sense. There was more output from the deals that you were placing. And I think we hit it at the right point as well, which is great. It's like when it really started to hot up of, we were having conversations for roles in agency with people, and they were like, "Oh, have you got anything in house?" And it was like 7 out of every 10 conversations.
Well, I always thought that. I was like, there must be more people at the experienced recruiter level. There must be more people wanting to do that than actually move agencies. Because again, I'm giving you a really simplistic personal view, but when I was billing big in contract, you weren't moving me. There's just no way you were moving me, because why am I fucking leaving? The only reason I'd have left is if I'd have fallen out with someone, and I was like,
exactly. And you kind of sharking around as a rectorate for, particularly contract recruits, like, have you been pissed off? Have you been punched at Christmas party? That kind of thing, right? And because as a contract recruit, you're completely married to your ledger, right? Simple as that. So you're pulling perm people, who are maybe underperforming, have fallen out with someone, commission structures being changed, stuff like that.
Yeah,
the differing dynamic comes when, you're working with like innovative, disruptive early stage companies or big brands where you can maneuver your pitch to being, it's not about, this company has a great commission structure, or this company, they're going to Marbella for their incentive trip, and they're going to pay for you 5 stars, and you meet 50 Cent and have a great time. But like, can
we do that? Can we still do that? I want to.
I heard stories, but I've heard a lot of stories. I'm sure you have too. But yeah, it becomes like a more product oriented sell, right? Where it's like, do you want to work for a company that is changing the way that we deliver healthcare? Do you want to work for a company that is revolutionizing like cross-border payments? And it becomes more exciting, right? Like, how do you feel about being a hugely significant catalyst in growing this great product, this great software, this great service, rather than do you want to be selling 5 or 6 different opportunities, trying to overpopulate candidates with roles for the sake of getting a deal? Like, where's the validity of the contribution? The validity of the contribution for an in-house recruiter is you're scaling a company, right? And that company can impact lives, right? Like, I'm not an in-house zealot at all, right? But I think there comes a point in people's recruiting careers where you've got to consider what you're actually doing.
Because you did it and then went back out, really. Like, you could have stayed in-house and you could have gone in-house for one of these tech companies or whatever. You could have done that.
Yeah. I mean, look, who knows what the future holds? I place people in roles and I think, I'd love to do that. Like, but it's life's taken me on a different path. But like, I think, I mean, the pivot was, it was well timed in terms of the market.
When was it?
It was, I think, like I say, it's like 2017, 2018, right. And it really gathered pace 2019, and that was reflected in.
Did COVID bring you to a standstill with the fact that
it was bad? That was. I mean, we almost, for a number of reasons, we almost run to the wire in COVID. Some of them personal, some of them circumstantial to the business, right? And that was the hardest part for me in this entire 10 years of running the business, right? So we went into 2020 on the back of our best year ever, which was, was a respectable kind of circa 400k billings between Kelly and me, right? And then COVID hit, and like I say, a variety of factors conspired to make it a very, very difficult year. Like COVID being one of them. Roles were pulled. The momentum that we'd had in terms of, delivering to really exciting clients, global brands and exciting and interesting startups, just all stopped. And we did the worst quarter we'd ever done for a long time, which was like 20k in that COVID quarter, like April, like Q1 financial year 2020. And I was forced into a situation where I had to go back to looking at agency stuff. Which was fine, because we had some really good relationships. It wasn't that long since we did it, but I felt
people still hiring you.
Oh mate, I felt in a situation where it was like I felt like a bit of kind of cap in hand idiot. Like, I thought you'd buggered off to go and do in-house recruiting, like, working for the enemy kind of situation. But thankfully other people didn't think that way, and they were happy to use us, and we got back on track with some agency deals, within pharma and life sciences, which, global pandemic, where do you go for business? And it slowly got back on track. But that 6-month period was really, really difficult, right? Because it coincided with me actually realizing I had a really quite severe gambling addiction at that point.
Really?
And it had been developing for a long time, which is why we got close to a situation.
Gambling addiction. Tell us a bit more. Like, what were you doing?
Yeah. So, and again, this is, like, I suppose, one of the toxic associations with, a lifetime of being madly into football and sport, is that probably like early 2000, probably like when I was at uni, I got into wagering on football.
Oh, you mean just putting like accumulators or whatever?
You're sorry?
You mean just putting bets on, or
putting bets on? Yeah. So like going to bookies with mates, you know, free afternoon and spend it in the bookies, go to horse races, you know, like all these things which, you know, which could be financially beneficial. And I didn't do it from like a kind of like a pulse that I want to be a person that is known as, you know, as a gambler kind of thing, right? I did it because I thought I knew about football, like, you know, that they're going to win that game, you know, that and then it starts getting a horse racing. That horse is going to win that. I read the racing post and that sort of stuff. But I only ever got into it to make money, and it wasn't for the thrill of it. Like obviously it's great when you win a bet, right? And you know it's like doing a deal. You know, you put a decent amount of money on and you get a great return, right? But I did it, and I was stupidly doing it because I thought I could get rich from betting. Like one idiot. And then that kind of bled into like investing in shares, stuff like that, crypto, and in stocks and stuff like that. But all of my behaviors around it had been like get rich quick type situations. So big, like lumping big sums.
How much are we talking?
I mean, probably the biggest ever put anything, probably about 5-6 grand on a bet. You're sorry?
What type of bet would you put?
On a horse.
Oh my god! On one horse.
Cheltenham. Yeah.
Did it win?
It came in.
What did you get?
I think about 30k.
Yeah, so that's probably the worst thing you can do, isn't it?
Worst thing you can do, mate. It was, and that happened in 2017. At the same time, you know, I'd been investing in crypto, right? And then there's like that crypto run in 2017. And I'd been told actually by a previous colleague in recruiting who was recruiting for blockchain and crypto companies. He said, "You want to, you know?" I said, "Look, this crypto thing, like, you know, tell me about it." And he said, "He's like, you want to put some money into this thing called Ripple, XRP Ripple."
My brother did that, and he lost it all pretty much.
So I did, and I bought it. It was really, really cheap. It's like 3 cents or something like that. It's kind of like February, March, like 2017. Nothing happened with it. I literally check it every day on like eToro, and I'd be like, "Oh, it's gone up by a cent. Great, I've made like $25 or something. You know, wonderful." And then Christmas, kind of New Year 2017, there was like a massive like bull run on crypto, and it went crazy. And I made like 30, 40,000, 50,000, something like that. It was ridiculous. And I was away with friends like on a New Year's like holiday type thing. And I just remember like looking at this money just go up and up and up and up and up. And I was like, "Oh, just leave it." And people like, cash it out, cash it out, cash it out, cash it out. And I finally did. And then, you know, got a wonderful amount of money. But it gave me a false sense of what I was actually losing. Like those big wins, like the Cheltenham win, and, you know, make loads of money on Ripple. Like it was great, and everyone's kind of patting you back. "Oh, yeah, you know, what a great lad." But actually, what I'm not telling them is that, you know, I lost 400 quid on, you know, that Liverpool game, or that, you know, random game in Singapore, or, you know, and all those adverts that are out now about betting. I'm like 100%, you know, feel it. You know, I hate seeing betting adverts on the TV. But, you know, when the what's that thing where it's like Talk to Frank? Is that was that the drugs one? Yeah, it's Talk to Frank about like betting, where it's like, do you really need to bet on, like, you know, the Thailand under-20s against, you know, Malta under-19s?
You were doing that, like waking up and looking at.
Oh, mate, it was stupid. And in COVID, because I was so bored, I was doing that. There's no recruiting to do. You know, what do you do in lockdown? Quizzes, barbecues, because the weather was really nice, like home drinking. And, you know, there was like, I was trying to find whatever sport was on to bet on it. And that's when I started to realize I had a big problem, because, you know,
you were spending your funds as well. Like
spending my funds, but, you know, I was spending my funds, but also I was seeking out opportunity. It wasn't like, you know, let's do an accumulator at the weekend, lads, kind of thing. It was more, you know, toxic, like betting, like, and I had to go through a period where I thought we were going to go under here, to actually accept that I had that situation.
Did your wife realize what the severity of
it? No, I had to tell her. She basically, I lost a lot of money in a single day, and I was like ashen face for like 2 weeks, difficult to live with.
How much did you lose?
$50,000
Wow.
on Bitcoin.
Fucking hell.
So lessons learned there: don't leverage trade, and you know, the other thing is don't try and trade crypto when you are standing in a forest activity center with your children and meant to be actually spending time with them, instead of just buggering off to pretend you're getting a coffee or taking a work call and, you know, using Binance to leverage trade, because the connection wasn't good enough. But I'm not blaming that. But like, you know, it knocked me hard. I watched
That
it
must have took
disappear.
your eye off the ball in the job as well, like when you're...
Yeah, because because you're making money and you think, oh yeah, you know, I don't need to do that. You know, I had these kind of like grand ideas of being a kind of career investor, being like, oh yeah, what, a private investor type thing. Not for other clients, but put some money on that. You want to buy copper at the moment because it's going to go up. Like, you know, you hear these stories about people. I was just being an idiot, you know, because actually, and this is the thing that I learned, right? The best way to make money is get your head down and work. Get the fuck on with it, right? Don't think about like these different schemes, different investments, stuff like that. If you want to do them, but be sensible with it, right? But for me, the best thing that came out of it was I realized.
So what happened then? You told your wife about 50 grand with your tail between your legs, which must have been really, really difficult.
Yeah, she was like, "What is up?" And I was like, "I've got something to tell you." I told her, and she was like, "Is that it?" And I was like, "Well, no. You know, there's a lot more over the past few years." And she was like, "So what's the situation?" I was like, "Well, I need to get the fucking head down here." I had to tell my family, had to tell friends, you know, I had to be really open about it if I was going to be able to get better. I had to see the doctor. And you know, it was a huge wake-up call, man. Just in terms of like how I live my life, there was also a huge wake-up call for me in terms of how I run my business, and where my focus and my priorities need to lie. And
so when you can you remember what month that was? Was it 2020 or early 2021?
September 2020.
Right. So you're right in the heart of the. You coming out of the first lockdown, but going back into a second pretty shortly after.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
The market was getting better then, wasn't it?
It was getting better. Yeah. And luckily for me, you know, and I'm eternally grateful to the clients that I worked with at that point. You know, little did they know the kind of situation that I was in, like that. You know, not only the loss of the funds, but the loss of like confidence in myself, and you know, belief around, you know, who I was and what I was doing the right thing. And I had to completely reset myself in terms of like what my priorities and what my goals were, which I did, right? And I'm proud of myself, right? I got it right. I don't bet anymore. I don't go anywhere near it in terms of, you know, thinking about it and stuff.
Was it cold turkey though, or did you have to like slow it down, or
it was, you know, it's full cold turkey. I took what remained of like any investments out of like funds and stuff like that. I closed down all my accounts, contacted all the, you know, Bet365, Sky Bet, you know, all of the Paddy Power, all of them that I was using, and said, "Can you delete my account and deny me access?" It was a big one. Like, have I been to the horse races since? Yeah, I don't bet though. I go for the crack, right? And I've been in casinos since. I went to casino stag do with my mates, and I went straight to this. Said, I'm a recovered gambling addict. Now, are you sure you want to be here so I can handle it? And then he literally sat with me at the bar the whole time. The manager's like, "Don't go near the tables. Here's another drink. Here's another drink."
Mad, isn't it? As a recruitment organization, running payroll can be hard. Between pressure from worker volume and client demands, plus the compliance risks and time lost to manual process back office teams, it's all a struggle. To help, Vincere, our sponsor, have teamed up with Fast Track to offer a seamless integration for recruitment and staffing organizations, enabling better workflow between the front and back office. This new integration automates time and pay interpretation with a built-in comprehensive rules engine that can interpret complex awards and agreements across Australia, New Zealand, and the UK. The results are startling. You can reduce admin in your organization by 85%. You can lower your per cost timesheet and get paid faster. So, revolutionize your back office processes with the Vincere and Fast Track integration. Learn more at vincere.io/rag. Right, let's get back into the show.
Yeah.
It's one of them. I mean, my dad is like he's addicted, but not in a way. I think he's like a safe addiction. Like he spends, again, I don't know the full story, but
yeah,
I know he's a daily, like every day he'll have something on, and we're talking like a couple of quid. I know that because he doesn't have an income. Like
yeah,
his wife is the breadwinner, and he's on his pension, and he wouldn't have the money to spend. Like he just wouldn't have it. But I think he always makes enough through his winnings that he's always got a bit more to spend than you probably
a bit
realize.
of money.
Yeah, without, I mean, it's betting money. I think he's not bothered about the beers. He's just But the funny thing was, growing up, I only saw my dad on a Saturday, and he knows the whole of Manchester by bookies. Everywhere
Yeah,
you go, like, oh yeah, there's a Ladbrokes there, and there's a Willie Hill there, and it was we'd spend all day Saturday running errands and doing things, but we'd always stop off at bookies. I mean, like on the hour, pretty much, because there'd be another race. And I fucking hated waiting outside. I hated it, like to the point where I used to complain so much. And then I got to an age where I could go in. And I had a little bit of it, like, what is he actually doing in it? And I remember thinking, this is boring as fuck. Like, I really didn't feel it. So
yeah, awful.
I'm actually grateful for that, because it's never been something. I mean, I've the odd bloody accumulate. I'm talking about 5 times in my life. I've been to, I might put a few quid on at the races, like 50 quid or something. But I know I'm not interested in that game. And I got burnt badly with 20 grand on Bitcoin in 2017. So I'm like, I'm out of that. I'm not interested. But I can see, I've watched him, and I can see it is something that can grip you, right? And it can become.
There are people who could deal with it, right?
Yeah.
I just couldn't. I've never been addicted to anything in my life. Booze, other stuff. Like fags, even. Not like I smoked, but I wasn't addicted to it. Yeah. It was just something that I did, right? And but gambling, completely like hamstrung me. But the positive slant on that is that whole experience just made me. It made me better. It made me a better person. It made me more professional. It made me more focused on what I'm doing. It made me get perspective. And it's from that point that I think that I've done my best work and we've achieved the most as a company, right? Because it's basically lit the touch paper of being like, right, this is what your life is, Alderson James, right? You got
like a red pill, blue pill moment, haven't you? And it's like, choose this.
100%, man. Yeah, 100%. I was like,
I'm mindful of the time. We've got about 10 minutes left. Let's talk about what's happened since. So you come out into 2021. That was a bumper year.
It was amazing.
2021 and 2 have been great years for the industry. And then you've gone and built a team. How different has it been for you?
In terms of having like a team of a relative scale, right? To compare.
I mean, like having less distraction. So you've got your family and you've got your job, and you're not running bloody circuits on all these like Bet365s and
I mean,
lack of distraction.
My life feels less complicated, I have to say, like, subsequent to that kind of admission of guilt, really, and that situation. But what I've tried to do myself since then is to surround myself with good people, professionally, personally. It was all on me. It wasn't to do with people that I was hanging around with. I made a conscious decision to do what I did, and it didn't work out right. But having that kind of like level of immersion in the market, like late 2020, 21, and then early 2022, where we were just so busy, man. Like we did incredibly well. I had an incredible year of billing. On a personal level, we did great as a business. We quadrupled our best year in that year. Team of 3, we've done probably like pretty much kind of 2 million across the team, right, in terms of fees, which is just insane. And I just got to the point, really, maybe timed it slightly badly. That's in badly, but not ideal in terms of like the volume of work that we were getting, and where we had maneuvered ourselves to in terms of market position over the course of that overheated market year, right? Strategically, there's a lot of very, very good relationships, not only with companies but with investors, right? In that situation, which has been really a really wonderful thing for us to be involved with as a business. But it was time, regardless of that market, for me to actually use that pot that we built up to actually bring people in. Because actually, what the most important thing for me about bringing people into the business is that and this might sound a bit namby-pamby, right? But I really want to empower people to go on a similar journey to what I did. Like, I don't mind if someone turns around in, a year, 2 years time from working with me, say they want to set up on their own. Fine. You live your life. Like, thank you so much for what you've done here. Go forth and achieve what you're capable of doing, right? I'm not gonna stand in anyone's way of doing that. But I want
to me now multiple times, and I'm always grateful for it.
Well, that's it, man. Like, I'm not here to hold people back, right? I want to empower people to learn, to develop, to earn, and to work with exciting businesses, to work with great candidates, and to be proud of something, right? And it's taken me that experience that I had with my addiction to really kind of like think about what I want to give to the people who work with me, clients and candidates, but also what I want to give to the people who work for me, and try to embody those kind of things. So yeah, I mean, in terms of where we're at now as a business, we've got we've been dealing with a tricky market for probably 12 months, probably 6 months.
I was going to say that. What is the economic landscape like for you today? We're at the end of April 2023.
Yeah, I mean, to all intents and purposes, the market seems to be improving for TA and HR roles. Like the kind of tech layoffs hashtag, which is pretty kind of prominent at the moment. It's been brutal really for talent acquisition in particular, right? And it's been going on a lot longer, I think, than a lot of people give it credit for. So we actually first start to see the turn of the market probably about March, April last year, where I think a lot of people think it started in the summer and towards the autumn. But it was gathering momentum to kind of like a pinnacle really of the Meta and Amazon layoffs, like droves, thousands of people. And then kind of subsequent kind of second round layoffs, in March this year, which was clearly like a financial year thing, right? But since like beginning of March, and we posted a good result really for 21-22 on a wholesale level. But billings did decline over the course of last year for sure, for like 500 to 300 to 200 to 200. And Q1 this year was definitely not one to write home about. Thing is, we were wise to that. It was always going to be like that, right? But since beginning of March, we start to see a shift in momentum. And always in recruitment, you're dealing with conflicting currents, right? You could have a surface level of turbulence, and then there's a positivity coming to just kind of take over it, right? And we've seen that. We're busier now than we have been for probably the whole of 2023. We reckon that we're going to stabilize in terms of our billings and improve in a kind of to use like I suppose a trading like Bitcoin chart, right? You could kind of go. It kind of goes up and down. It gets the wave kind of gets bigger as you continue to grow in your brand and your presence, and your capability increases, right? So we kind of anticipate over the course of this year it's going to get better and better, particularly for talent. I think the HR and people side has been pretty kind of stable over the course of the past couple of years anyway, right? And that that maintains because of the necessity of HR people in both growth and decline situations.
Are you doing any rec to rec anymore?
A little bit here and there, mainly on the operations side of things rather than recruiting consultants. So we've done roles in L&D for recruiting businesses. We've done internal recruit roles for recruiting businesses, and I think on that side of things, it's never something that I'd say never again to. But I think the capacity that we could be useful in there is more on the leadership side. And actually, I think one of the things that's really important to me is actually it's kind of breaking down those barriers between like in-house and agency in some respects, because we're in a market right now. There's a lot of in-house people who are on the market, and oftentimes you find agencies are quite negative about the prospect of hiring someone who's been in-house. Join the dark side, or obviously couldn't do it in agency or whatever. I mean, that's all bullshit, right? Like a lot, especially in the last 10 years, a lot of very good recruiters have gone into in-house recruiting. But I think the lines between the way that agencies operate and the way that in-house recruiters operate, I think that like there's a convergence and maybe a blur really in terms of the good agencies and the way that they partner with their end client in that really value-added, insightful, engaged, in that cohesive way, rather than talk to a man about a dog type situation. Like, here's a CV, like you should hire this guy. Like, good companies, good agencies out there will act as an extension of an in-house function. So why an in-house person shouldn't necessarily return to an agency position, I don't know, right? Because it's all about knowledge, insight, and capability to engage, and that that's something that recruiters whether you're in-house or agency, you've got to be good at these days, right? And you should be looking to instill those values around process into your business.
Final question then is, what's the plan now then? So you're 10 years in, it's 10-year anniversary coming up very shortly, so well done, and hopefully I'll get invited to the testimonial game at Goodison Park. But in terms of the next phase, what is it? What are you wanting to achieve?
So, you know, where we are now is that we want to keep the team together here for this year, right? You know, we're under certain kind of perceptions really that, you know, it's been a tough market, but I brought this group of people in here for a reason. It's because they blend well, it's because they care, and it's because they're good at what they do, right? So regardless of what happens in the market over the course of the next year, this team stays together, and I've told them that, because I want us to consolidate and I want us to be ready. In terms of growth, you know, I'd never wanted us to be like a 1,000-person business. I think the quality that we have to offer comes in our level of close partnering with clients, and our ability to be, I suppose, kind of small but mighty, right? You know, it's something that's always been quite, when you're working in a niche market in the way that we do, right? I think it's important that we are able to maintain a personality of the business and the way that we come across to our customers and to our candidates. So there'll be a bit of growth probably over the course of the next couple of years. I think, you know, look, probably top out maybe 16, 20 people. You know, obviously that can change.
Will you still see yourself in the same role and billing manager, or will you step off?
I think so. I think it's really important for managers and leaders to stay on the tools as much as possible. Although there has to come kind of a departure point where you are, you know, you're propagating opportunities for the people in the business, right? And that, you know, we
talked about it before with the holiday, right? So like, the business can't just rely on your billings. It has to be like your percentage of value needs to decrease as the team grows, right? So if you're billing 60% now, you need to be doing the 40%, then the 30%, the 20%. Now your billings might actually remain similar, but the numbers in the business, that's got to happen as you grow. And I know that from the show, that the people I've interviewed. It's interesting. Recently, that episode with Jonathan Field, I don't know if you listened to that one from SSQ, and he talked about, you know, 160 people, and everyone still has a billing target. Like everyone, and he's like, he's co-CEO and he still bills, and it's like fucking awesome. Like I love that. Like that's really cool.
Because you can't have an appreciation of the challenges that people who work for you are facing if you're not facing them yourself. Like what the challenges that I faced 10 years ago are different to what they'll have now, right? So I can't just kind of leave that to the wayside and say, you know, okay, well, you know, I get your pain. I understand how, you know, this is working. When you're not at the coalface, right? You've got to be at the coalface to feel the heat. So yeah, my role will develop. You know, replacing yourself in terms of your revenue generation is the hardest thing for any entrepreneurial recruiting business owners to do. I feel like I've got that with the blend of people that we've got at the moment. You know, we want to get a bit bigger. We want to share more content and insights. We've got experienced people here. We're doing loads of that stuff. Obviously, you know, you are helping with that at the moment. And yeah, you know, just keep doing good stuff for people. You know, we genuinely give a shit about our clients' growth. We give a shit about career development for our candidates. We want to make a difference and we want to help, and that's why we're here.
What a way to end, James. Thank you, mate. It's been a long one, 1 hour 20 minutes. It's longer than I expected. But
sorry, mate, I chat shit, don't I?
I mean, it was really insightful. I think it was really honest, really vulnerable. I think a lot of people can empathize with both the personal, both being a father, you know, all what we discussed there, plus the gambling, plus the whether they're going to start a new business, whether they've already launched their business, the lifestyle without the plan, building a team, growing it. There's so much in here, and what I would say is it's just so relevant. It's so relevant to the reality of the audience that are listening. So thank you, mate. I really appreciate it. If anyone is inspired to talk to you, reach out, wants to, even if it's about the gambling stuff, whatever, would you be okay to them?
100%, mate. I mean, the thing that I should have done with that, I needed to talk to people. I would give them the bravado, but I would never give them the pain because I was too embarrassed to, right? So if anyone does want to talk about, you know, building a business, if anyone talks about, you know, demons that they're facing or challenges that they have around it, fuck it, man. Give me a shout.
James, you've been a star. We'll get you on again in the future. Good luck with everything.
Thanks, matey. Take care.
Thank you, as always, for listening to today's show. I truly, truly hope that you got value from it. That's the only reason I take time every week, is to ensure that my audience, future and existing recruitment owners, are learning from each other to make this industry that I love so much stronger. Today's episode is brought to you by Hoxo Media. I am the CEO and founder of Hoxo Media, and we are the world's leading content marketing and personal branding agency for recruitment businesses specifically. So we are working with over 200 agencies and 2,000 recruiters right now, both managing the brands, producing content, building written, video, podcast content for niche recruitment agencies all over the world, as well as coaching at a desk level individual recruiters in your businesses how to be better on LinkedIn. That's how to brand themselves. That's how to produce content. That's how to use the opportunity on LinkedIn to get traffic to their profiles and turn that into business. We're coaching people all over the world every single day. If any of that sounds of interest, please do visit www.hoxomedia.com or drop me, Sean Anderson, a personal message on LinkedIn. I would love to talk to you. I'll see you soon.